Hey climbers, and welcome back to the Treehouse. My name's RHI, and this is the Tarot Tree. And today, I thought we'll just do a little VR back to Dani Mystic's My Classics, the wonderful Dani Mystic. It's a great tag that's been going around. But I have to be honest, I've been a little bit apprehensive on getting involved in this one, as I noticed a few others have been, and I think it's kind of to do with being relatively new to the tarot world. You know, I only started my tarot journey a few years back, so I'm a tarot baby, as it were. And when we think of the word classic, sometimes we think, oh, like how many years have we have to put in to kind of have that title, I guess. So it's been interesting toing and froing, figuring out, do I have classic decks? What are the decks that make you think, oh yeah, that's RHI? What decks really speak to me, my energy, my aesthetic even? I think what's been good about this tag is it's been quite open. I've noticed people have put their own spin on it, which has been quite cool. I've really enjoyed seeing that, really enjoyed seeing the sort of candidness around it as well. We have Candy from Candy Soul and Soil, very openly stated some really interesting things I think a lot of us go through, and her kind of VR to this, which is like, you know, are these my classic decks, or are they just the decks I wish for my classics, you know? And she spoke to alter egos almost, or, you know, things of that nature. And also, you know, Kara, Moonlight Arcana, and a few others, as well as Candy, spoke about, okay, these might not be my classics now, but they will be my classics down the end, you know, have a strong feeling. So that's been interesting. So taking all of that into account, this is how I've sort of gone about this tag, you know. I've incorporated those sort of notions. You know, we're going to look at what some classics of mine could be in the future, what some I really believe are now and speak to my energy, and maybe some are just a bit of wishful thinking of who I'd hope I would be, or different alter egos of myself. So hopefully you'll have fun diving in with me. Yeah, definitely get involved if you haven't already. And without further ado, let's look at my classic RHI decks. Why not? Let's get going, guys. So, first up, how could it not be, you know, when do I ever shut up about this deck? It has to be the Blood Moon Tarot. What can I say about this deck? Spoke to me very strongly before I even had it. Said, you need to come to me. I've picked jury. I'm rhyming so many words and I don't even intend to, sorry if that's jarring, but yeah, as soon as I saw images of this, I was like, yep, that's my deck. And boom, I managed to get hold of it, and subsequently not being able to put it down. I will work with this deck come rain or shine. I know a lot of other people kind of maybe use this as a bit of a deep diver deck, potentially a shadow work deck. Personally, I feel I can use it for anything. When I want to turn to its energy, I will turn to its energy and I will call upon that blood moon, you know, help me out. What is it about this deck that is classic RHI, I hear you ask? And, you know, I've asked myself these questions too lately. I just feel like there's just so many layers to this deck. First and foremost, let's have a look through. It's a mysterious, kind of dark yet beautiful deck that kind of speaks to the psyche, I want to say. And I feel like that speaks to my energy, you know. I think that's why it called out to me. That's something I'm going through, a lot of growth in terms of that, you know. And I love that about it. I love that it has those kind of layers, and that really speaks to me. I also love how in having this sort of mystery and this layers and this symbology, you know, these different ways in which it can be used. Like I said, I can use this as a sharpshooter personally. That's how connected I feel to it. But also as a deep diver, because there's always so much to learn with this, and that's why I feel it is so me, because it evolves and it grows with me, if that makes sense. This is why I don't see it leaving my collection, genuinely, because it's part of, you know, the part of RHI that's always wanting to learn, wanting to get a bit deeper. And it came to me during this quite, you know, strong kind of phase. I'm not even going to describe it as a phase, because it's just more like an awakening in life and getting on that journey. I think that's why it called out to me, because it felt like it could be used in that. And as that, I feel, is always going to speak to me going forward. This is why it's a classic. Genuinely. This is why I always sing this next phrase, because there's just so much to it. It's dark and it's beautiful and it's mysterious, and there's always much more to learn. And, you know, I've been told I have these things about me, these sort of mysterious ways, and all what I seem. This deck isn't all what it seems either. You know, it's got some beautiful kind of cards and sort of lovely pentacles, bright energy, you know, that mystical, magical kind of energy. And then it has these really dark sort of undertones as well. It's murky, you know. This deck is not perfect, much like me. Some of the images are quite murky and dark, and they're not clear. And that's how I feel sometimes. You know, sometimes the borders here, they kind of embellish, and they kind of impose themselves on the images, and you have to get past that, you know. It's not a perfect deck, you know, for me by any means, and I'm not a perfect person, and that's what I like about it. You know, I feel like maybe as I grow along with this deck, you know, I've always spoke to how I would like to get a borderless version. Not that I hate the borders per se, but I do feel like it would be interesting to have those images opened up a bit, and that might speak to my journey as we go on with it. I love how the suits speak to different energies within me also, you know. It speaks to the reader in me, you know, the wands particularly, if we get to one now. We're not going to find one. Or the skin, shall we say. It speaks to the passion, you know, that can be all-consuming, but also the transformational kind of aspect of fire. I love that the wands and the skins in this speak to that kind of part of me, you know. I love that the Fool, one of my most favourite Fool cards of all time, you know, it speaks to that collective soul in me, you know, who's realised that, you know, now I'm connecting to something bigger, and is standing at the doors of life opening before them, you know, that sort of primal energy, that getting back to source energy, which is the state I was in when I first came across this deck, you know, and the journey I'm embarking on now. I love that. I love that it spoke to me of that, getting me in touch with my higher kind of self. The guides, I always see this door as that as well, welcoming, beckoning, giving you warnings, so many layers. I love that about this deck. I love that the suit of songs, or the suit of cups, you know, and the emotions speak to music, you know, as a musician, as a poet, as a writer. For me, this is where my emotions go. This is how I channel them, and the fact that songs are being used to kind of portray the cup suit in this really speaks to me so strongly, you know, and that's why it is a classic deck for me, because it's got so many layers of it that mirror layers to me. Without trying to be too deep in that, but really and truthfully it does. It marries so many elements of myself within it. It mirrors them to me, as I said. It gives me a better understanding of myself. So in many ways it is kind of me in a deck, you know, the me that's still trying to find themselves and is willing to put that work in and reflect. And that's what I love about it. That's why it's a classic. It speaks to so many things I kind of see these cards as being. You know, the magician here, we have an alluring character, this musician, this person who's being poured over, you know, people pouring over him, fawning over him, you know, that element of the wanting to be the performer. We have the death card here that really speaks to the grief that comes along with death that we get gloss over sometimes. Speaks to how I see these cards. And I love that about it. I really do. I love that, the whimsy of it, you know, this chariot, this person sewing their own magic carpet and kind of weaving their own path forward. I love that aspect of it. I absolutely love, you know, that it doesn't shy away from the dark elements, you know, someone who's embarking on a lot of shadow work within themselves and has had a lot of kind of blockades and challenges in regards to, you know, things to do with thought and depression and anxiety and how all-consuming they can be. The dream suit in this really speaks to that more than any other deck that I've really ever worked with, you know. It speaks to being confined in them spaces, you know, these dreams. Look at this. I'm trying to find a kind of more do we have any here? Here we go. Let's get to one that's quite fervent in how it gets that across. It speaks to that part of me that's been confined in them dark spaces, you know, here with the Six of Dreams and had to recover, the Six of Swords, with the Eight of Swords here as well, who's been in those confined spaces, you know, had to battle against their own thoughts, but always sought to find a silver lining in them and watch them dissipate as these sort of dream monsters do within this suit, you know, even though they can feel all-consuming. A person that knows what this feels like and has been able to get through, you know, and I love that about this deck. It doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of ourselves and our psyche, and that's why it speaks so strongly to me. This is why it's a classic, as I said. It really is. It's just beautiful. It's breathtaking, genuinely. I like that it speaks to all three faces of the goddess archetype for me personally, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. I don't know if anyone else has really picked that up in this deck, but for me, as being someone that's kind of on a transitionary phase between two of them at the moment, I would say the maiden and the mother, and who's doing a lot of divine feminine and goddess work. I like that it speaks to all of them. I really do, because like I said, this deck evolves and grows with me. I genuinely see that. I genuinely believe that. And as I grow, so it grows with me, so my practice grows with me, so is there more layers to discover about this deck, so is there more symbolism to kind of be privy to, you know, more spiritual meanings that I'm privy to that aren't there initially when using it, but as I grow with it, it grows with me, and that's why it will forever be a classic. I mainly use this deck for myself, though I could do readings for others with it. I feel like it's just more of a personal deck to me because, yeah, it just speaks to so many layers I have of myself. It speaks to that inner psyche, different facets of my personality, different facets of my journey, and it's ever evolving and growing with me, as I've said. So, yeah, the Blood Moon Tarot. 100% a re-classic, and the fact that I bang on about it so much, all of you have seen it on my channel many times. I'm sure you would kind of think of my name too when you see it, so it couldn't not be here, what can I say? So yeah, the Blood Moon Tarot, a re-classic for sure. Now, a classic re-deck compilation would not be complete without this. You know, how many times have you seen me go on about this one too? Okay, this is my beloved Lord of the Rings tarot. Let's get her out. So, what is there to say about this beauty? And what part of Re does this speak to, I wonder? Okay. Oh, we're gonna find it in order, so we'll be going back. The Lord of the Rings. What does it speak to for me? Classic deck for me, in many ways, not only because it's a wonderful, beautiful deck, and I am, you know, a complete and utter fan of this story. It speaks to the storyteller in me. Okay, I'm a storyteller. I see myself as a storyteller. If you hear the way I always bang on and kind of roll off anecdotes to you guys, I'm sure you could probably notice that too. It's that part of Re that and me. It's that part of me that's really kind of resonates with story medicine as well. You know, it's something I find healing. Like what we can draw upon from parables, and how that's more easy for me to digest sometimes. You know, is the part of me that sort of escapes into the fantasy sometimes. You know, and can kind of accept them messages that are a little bit at proxy from me. You know, it's, you know, we're still in a fantasy world here, but, you know, the feelings are still real. You know, look at this Three of Swords, but it's still not too real life that it's like almost too confronting for me, if that makes sense. too close to home. It's enough removed that I can take those lessons and stories in, if that makes sense. That's why I think parables are so helpful to us, and this is why I think storytellers in life exist anyway, to make these things more digestible, these lessons. This is why we've had them throughout life, with Aesop, for example, you know, all of our sort of, you know, tribes, whatever we kind of associate our cultural background to, have all had storytellers that have passed wisdom on. And it's a way to get people to actually reflect on life, rather than all the politics and the sort of social kind of aspects and God knows what else you're bringing to the table when it becomes too personal, you know, and it's too close to home. You know, we have these stories that we can relate to, but they're far enough away that we can take on the lessons, if that makes sense. That's why I love this deck. It speaks to the earth sign in me as well, you know, that earth sign that likes to be grounded in something I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with this story. I'm very familiar with this story. It means a lot to me, this story. It has a very sentimental meaning to me, this story. It's come to me through many dark times. It's helped me get through. It's something I turn to. I think I mentioned before, whenever I'm down, I really just put these films on, or, you know, get back into the stories, because it's enough to give me that sort of hope and that drive. And that's what I like having in a deck. That's why I turn to tarot. That's why I turn to my decks. I'm sure many of us do. We want that sort of guidance. We want that hope, really. Like, you know, give me some wisdom. Help me on my way here. You know, I'm stuck. This is why I'm talking to the gods. Help me. You know, I love that about it. That sort of nostalgia as well. I think it kind of definitely trickles into that element of me. That's why it's a classic deck, because I'm a nostalgic and sentimental person, for sure. You know, I like learning through characters, through scenes that, you know, I can relate to in some way, shape or form, either as they're very relatable to me as a person, or someone I would like to be, you know, or someone I really wouldn't want to be, you know, and you know, again, that far enough removed that I can take those lessons on, but close enough to my heart as a story that, you know, I can understand it, you know, I grasp it. It's not hard for me to grasp. And I love that and appreciate that so much about this deck. It makes me happy to use it. That's why I use it so often, come rain or shine. Again, this is another one that I'm just never without. I can do readings for myself. I could do readings for others with this with ease, you know, and it gives me so many different messages still, you know, even within these kind of depictions that are very closely related to the Rider-Waite meanings. Very cleverly done, I must say, especially if you do have a connection to this story and the characters. Very well done. But they give you different kind of cues, you know, different perspectives to draw upon, which I like, you know. It's that classic part of me that likes to read from a system that I learned from the Rider-Waite, likes that kind of familiarity, like I said, like as earth signs like, give me stability, give me familiarity, give me something that's grounding me, you know. It's a very grounding deck because of these familiarities, and that's why I love it. That's what makes it easy for me and for others. I love the artwork too, you know. It speaks to everything, you know. I like the aesthetics, I like the way it feels, I like the way it shuffles, I love the backs. Yeah, I love the fantasy element. What more can I say? It's just, yeah, it's a classic read deck. I speak about it a lot, and that's for good reason. And I definitely feel like if you are connected to this story in any way, shape or form, or the movies even, give it a go, because it's so well done, and it can definitely become a classic for you too. So yeah, we'll leave our Lord of the Rings, trusty Lord of the Rings deck there. That's mainly what I want to say about it. So yeah, guys, second classic read deck, Lord of the Rings Tarot by Fix Art. Great artist on Etsy, check him out. Okie dokie. Okay, Ree's next classic has to be The Lightseers. Yeah, I'm thinking I couldn't leave this out, because really and truthfully, it's one of the decks I use the most. It's one of the decks I turn to, especially when I'm feeling hazy or like I just need to get those messages. I need them here. I need them right now. I need to be able to just see it clearly, see the message clearly, and I need it to be kind, you know. This is the deck that speaks to the part of me that really wants to be present, I guess. Because of the kind of, oh God, we got a little chirpy, cheep friend. I'm sure he likes the deck too. I wonder what he's saying. Anyone speaks bird language? We've got any Dr. Doolittles around? Let us know what Mr. Birdie is saying about Lightseers, because he seems very enthralled by it. But I digress. It's the part of me that likes to stay in the present. You know, this is a very it is a modern deck in how it's depicting things, which I like because it keeps me in reality. Because I can, like I said, I like to be grounded, but sometimes, you know, I can really get lost in my mind and be a little bit away with, you know, whatever thoughts have taken me. And this is, again, is grounding, like the Lord of the Rings, but kind of in the opposite, because it grounds me in reality, because of how these sort of, well, maybe not him, because, well, I don't know where he's living, but it looks like a cool life, right? But it grounds me in the present. These are people that are very familiar looking to me. They're dressed in ways that are familiar to me. They speak to characters that I know and people I know. And, you know, I like that. It's very familiar in that sense. It keeps me in the 3D, in the material, and I like that. That's something I strongly try to stay in at times, you know, especially when I'm getting in my mind too much. But it's got a light energy to it. You know, it's called the Light Seers. And although this book is very good at helping you look at the shadow aspects of things too, the colours, the cards, everything about it, it's just more uplifting. And it's the part of me that seeks to be like that, you know. I am, deep down at heart, I would say, a hopeful person, you know, as much as I can go through my struggles like most of us can with negative thinking and feeling down and going through quite profound kind of experiences with things like depression, anxiety, etc. Struggling with fears, you know, of the moon coming. Even this, you know, it gives you hope in these cards, the light aspects, you know, the sort of dreaminess but presence of it, if that makes sense. The present, it's just very present, you know. Even here we have a meditating figure, and I like that. It's easy for me to read from because of that. It's almost like, even in the kind of darker cards, I guess, they're relatable, you know, getting up and moving on. I love how the court cards are depicted in here. This is the first deck. It is one of my first tarot decks, to be honest. It's definitely one of the first 3 I bought, and it really helped me with the court cards, you know, my understanding of them, because that's, like I've said before, I struggle with court cards a lot because they don't speak to characters, and I need that character defined to understand what that figure means to me. And this deck did it beautifully, which is why it's such a great reader for me, and I go back to it, especially when I'm struggling and I just need that go-to deck. It's very good to read for others for. It's probably my go-to deck to read for others for, really and truthfully, and I think it's the one that a lot of people are attracted to, again, because of that familiarity, that we're in the present day in a way here. You know, though there are some whimsical and kind of weird things going on in some of these cards, like this guy's sitting on Mars, like an emperor here. It's here, you know. We've all been to the beach, you know. We've all had to weigh up options, you know. I think it sort of speaks again to the kind of person I want to be as well, in a way. The energy in this deck, because there are quite hippie nods to this, and I think there's, you know, like I got a hippie part of me for sure. You know, Queen of Pentacles, you know, this is one of my kind of cards from my zodiac chart. You know, I just love how she's sitting. I love her energy. I love all the greenery, you know. I love how some of the major arcana that I struggle with sometimes, Judgment being one of them, how it's like here, like you're elevating, you know, you're going on higher, you know. As part of you, you've made that kind of leap. I love that. And it doesn't shy away from the pain, but it also kind of gives you that nod, like it's not forever. Look at the threads, they can easily be cut. You can get yourself out of this. I really like this about this deck, and this is why it's a classic read deck. You know, it speaks to the here and now in the 3D, you know, the modern, slightly hippie-ish, you know, wanting to kind of find their way to all these sort of fun cards in here. You know, the way it depicts community in this cards makes me really happy, you know. I really do love it. I love it. Look, this is again a wonderful 6 of Wands, you know, victory. Look at this. But this is someone almost being celebrated for being a performer, being on stage. You know, anyone who is like an artist, who kind of does performance and stuff, it just speaks to your soul on a different level. You understand that feeling of victory, but different. Like, none of us really go into battles anymore, you know, on horseback and kind of, you know, do anything like that. So, you know, thankfully. But we do know what this energy feels like, you know. And I like that. I like that a lot. I really do. It's got enough whimsy, but like I said, it's more grounding in reality for me, this deck. That's what I like. That's what I need. It takes me to a kind of place like where I've been happy in life, if that makes sense. I don't know why it does that. I keep trying to get this across. I don't know if I've said this already, but the energy in this deck, even this 3 of Pentacles, this sort of chill, people working together, knitting something, putting it up, like when you're working as a community, you know, someone who's done a lot of volunteer work and things like that. It speaks to the happier times of my life, or the things that are more in line with me in my life, you know, in this 3D, you know, making the most out of this lifetime here, you know, in the material, not just, you know, trying to elevate spiritually, but actually being here, experiencing this human kind of existence. This is what this deck speaks to, like the way I want to go about life, like that. That's the energy it brings, and that's why I use it so much, you know. 1 as a reminder, 2 because it resonates with me, and 3 because it gives me that sort of push as well, you know, that kind of like hug, like you can do this. You can have this, and it's just plain as day to see. You know, it's not too far away. It's not too much of a struggle to get to, really. So yeah, hopefully that made sense. Yeah, I couldn't leave the light seers out. I think sometimes, you know, I don't know anyone else, but when we're doing these tags and you kind of don't want to like, oh, should I keep getting out these kind of, you know, everyone's seen these decks before, like, do people want to see them again? But it's like, you know, the reason why this deck is so beloved, because it is so great, genuinely. It's one of my most favourite modern decks. I don't own too many. I think I would like to get one other maybe modern one that's a bit more confronting. So yeah, give me your suggestions for that, because perhaps that could become a classic too. But yeah, for now, I've got my trusty light seers. This won't be going anywhere from my collection. I really don't. I think it's very rider weight. You know, maybe as my tarot practice go on, I will evolve, but I just feel it's got so much there that speaks to me and what Rhi wants out of this material life, you know, and where I'm most happiest. So yeah, that's what I love about it, and that's why it's a classic. Let's put you away now. So those are all my classics in terms of tarot, really. 3 tarot, that's it. I'll be lying if I try to incorporate more, really. When I think about the 3 that I use the most, that speak the most to me, that I feel like I talk about the most, and, you know, people would probably associate with me, it has to be those 3. But I also wanted to include an oracle here, and, you know, I have quite a decent collection of oracle cards, to be honest. And I think about it, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh no, I only like tarot, you know, or I only need one oracle deck. No way, way, shape or form. I love my oracle decks, believe me. I feel like they can be so insightful and almost sometimes easier for me to grasp at times. But yeah, I will stop banging on and just get to it. The oracle deck I chose as a classic for me has to be my Poesis oracle. What can I say? I only really got this, God, how long was it? At the end of last year, perhaps? But instant, again, like I said with the blood moon, there's very few decks that I've kind of seen and just been like, yep, they've spoken, they were like, yep, you need to get me, Ree. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get you, you know, decks that found me. Like, I didn't go looking for them, they found me, because clearly we were meant to work together, and Poesis is one of them. She is one of them. I personify this deck very strongly as a female energy. I've described it before. When I work with this deck, it feels like a female guide or a goddess or something talking to me. I don't know if there's a female relative that's gone past on of mine that speaks very strongly through this. It's just a very, very, like, or a spirit guide or something. Deeply feminine deck for me, the energy. It's like an encouraging, like, big sis, or like, just, I can't explain it. It's just a female energy that's there that will tell you straight, sometimes a bit sassy, but very nurturing. And this is what I feel I can be to others. I hope to be more so as I grow into like that sort of mother kind of archetype within that goddess realm. And also what I need, you know, in terms of, you know, I needed that. I'm working on healing that aspect of myself, you know, that divine feminine aspect, getting more in touch with it, and this deck just came. And it's a classic read for many reasons. One, the simplicity. I like simple. I can be quite a complicated person at times. I can overthink things and overcomplicate things, but at the root of me, I like direct, very simple, to the point advice. Just give it to me straight, you know, please just give me an answer. This deck is that. It's a one keyword kind of deck, you know, if you want to use it that way. For whatever reason, I'm so connected to this deck, I understand it almost immediately. There are times when I don't want to hear the message it gives to me, and this deck's sassy because it just gives me the same cards over and over again. It won't change its mind. It's like, listen, I'm trying to nurture you, I'm trying to be cool with you, I'm trying to help you out here, but, you know, we're not going to be giving you a different answer, Ree. And that's what I need. That's what I need in order for me to grow, and deep down, that's what I appreciate the most. That's why it's classic to me. It's also classic to me because of the poet that is resides within me. I am a poet. I write a lot of poetry. It is my biggest sort of like creative outlet, I would say, the most natural one to me. Not something I've ever had to put too much work into. That's literally how I've processed emotions for a long time, or process things that have happened, how I make sense of the world, myself. And this is a poetry deck. You know, if you want to get past just these images and the keywords and you want to dive deeper in this deck, the guidebook that unfortunately is not a physical copy, but I'll let you in on a little project I'm embarked upon in a minute. But yeah, it's poems. These cards are all attributed to a poem, and the poems are so profound. Oh my goodness, I can't even speak highly enough. Who is it that has written them? I really feel I need to give them their shout out. We have Andrea One is the artist, I believe, but poetry is by a wonderful musician, I believe, called Megan King, and she's written a separate poem for each card, and they're just there. You know, when you have time with this deck to do a bit more of a deep dive with it, like I said, it has both them elements. It has that straight talking element that I have on myself, that I appreciate myself, and it has that deep thinker element, you know, and that artist sort of creative reflection element within the poetry that I love. So it's, you know, the best of both worlds. Oh, I didn't even watch that show like that, but yeah, all you Harry Hannah Montana stands out there. That's for you. But like I said, it can be very black and white, but which I like about it. But it also gets you in the sort of shades of grey with the poetry, you know. It's very profound, and I love that. I love the images, you know. Again, I'm someone that works in monochromatic art as well, along with my poetry. I'll get around to sharing that with you guys maybe at some point. But yeah, like, I love it. I love the simplicity of the images, you know. I love how they make you think. You know, look at this one, mind, like all the sort of aspects within your mind, like a Russian doll in your head, like so much going on. There be so many layers and personas to sort of get past, you know, and feeling like, oh my goodness, you can see it in that character, like they're kind of a bit overwhelmed, you know. Noise, all these sort of frenetic, weird kind of squiggles, that is what it feels like sometimes, right? Change, being the book turning over a new page. Silence, being confronted with just a black card. You know what I mean? It's just the simplicity, but the kind of depth, it's just, I love it. Simple and deep, you know, they sound oxymoronic, yeah, but it makes, I promise you, it makes sense. And I think that speaks to my energy a lot, to be honest, as well. Quite an oxymoronic person. But yeah, I can't speak highly about it enough. I use it daily, really. Anyway, it's a classic because it's out of print, I think, at the moment, and it's probably one of the only decks where I'm like, I need to get a backup copy, genuinely, in case I ruin it. I'm also embarking on, you know, my way of bonding with this deck. Like I said, I wanted a physical copy of the book. I even said to the creator, if you ever print one, just, you know, I'll be your first customer, because that, I feel like it deserves that. It deserves that sort of tangible, does that make sense? Tangible book, rather than just like having that moment to sit with it and contemplate quietly, especially the poetry element, rather than having to go on my phone and kind of go to the website and read the poems. It deserves that kind of physical copy, I believe, and that's why I've embarked on it myself. It's a way I'm bonding with this deck. I'm writing up the poems myself, and I'm also starting a project where I will pull a card and write my own poem in regards to it. So yeah, watch out for that down the line, that video. I'm trying to figure out how I will like get you guys involved to see how I'm going about that. So that's going to be a lot of kind of interesting, seeing how I can set up filming for that. But yeah, the Poesis Oracle, if you can get your hands on this, I really hope it does come back into print, because I feel like a lot of people could find a lot of merit from this, you know, a lot of help from this deck. And like I said, it's such a mothery kind of female kind of nurturing energy to it, like sisterly almost. I feel a lot of us could do with that, you know, a sister that would, you know, here to you, like that straight talking sister, but who loves you, you know. Oh gosh, I love this deck. Sorry, as you can tell, it's my classic. I use it all the time, and I will use it for myself, I'll use it for others. I feel like when others see these cards, they get their own, you know. She speaks to everyone in the way they need to hear, you know. That's the way I feel about this deck. And yeah, the poet in me, how could I pass it up? I couldn't. I could not, you know. And me being me, sometimes like, oh, what if it's not going to resonate? Like, you know, maybe I can be a bit picky with what poetry resonates with me, but no issues there whatsoever. It even speaks to me in a different way. Like the way I shuffle this, sometimes cards just come sticking out, and I just be like, cool, I'll just draw them, and that'll be what I need, you know. We work differently with it, you know. That's because it's a special deck. It's a classic deck. So yeah, before I babble on anymore, I'm going to put her away. Poesis, I love you. I hope you stay in my collection forever and ever and ever. And one day, you know, again, it serves as inspiration, because if I ever make my own deck down the line, and I definitely would love to incorporate poetry as well. This has set the bar. I set the bar very, very high. But like I said, if you made me in a deck, that would kind of be one of them too, as well as the others I've mentioned. So she couldn't go without being mentioned. So guys, that is all my, you know, fundamental classics, you know, if I'm being really honest, okay? That's my 4. You know, I don't have the biggest collection. I'm relatively new to tarot, and I just wanted to be like, you know, as honest as I could with myself and you guys in regards to that. But having said that, I'm going to take a leaf out of Candy, Soul and Soil, and a few others like Cara from Moonlight Arcana, when it comes to what decks, you know, would I kind of hope would be a classic, you know, or I feel are going to be a classic down the line for me. And first out for that would have to be the beautiful Witch's Wisdom Tarot. Again, this is a deck that I'm studying. I'm going to be continually studying this throughout the springtime, hence why it is still in order. This deck, what can I say? Again, one of very few that spoke to me very strongly and told me, Ree, we need to work together. And so Ree bit the bullet and Ree made that happen. So what energy in me, or energy I hope will kind of grow in me, does this deck speak to? You know, the alter ego. I saw Candy mention this as hers as well, an alter ego. You know, is the part of me that wants to get back to that druid past life I apparently had, you know. Wants to get back to the earth, back to nature. You know, as someone who I feel definitely, you know, whether you ascribe to this or not, I believe in past lives. I feel that was a big fundamental part of past lives of mine, and in this modern age I've been born into, and this big ass city I've been born into, this concrete jungle of London, I feel like it's a part of a challenge and stuff to kind of overcome and learn to get back to that, really, because it's where I feel most happy, if I'm being perfectly honest. Getting back in touch with nature, have a big affinity with trees, you know, that sort of guardian, the elemental guardians I get from this. Like, it's a witch's deck, and I'll be really upfront. Being a witch and stuff, it's not something that speaks to me like right now. It's not something I'm really overtly interested in. Like, I find it fascinating, you know, when others tell me their journeys and stuff, but it's not something that speaks to me at this moment in time. So I didn't get it as a deck for that. I got this a lot for a sort of elemental energy, guardian kind of energy, ancestral energy, I would say, and very like botanical kind of energy too. There's a very strong call to nature in this deck. So many beautiful cards. It's my aesthetic. I love the artist. My goodness, I can't remember her name off the bat, unfortunately, but I love this deck. It just, I feel like it's that kind of deck that's just going to get me back to connected, you know, here. This wheel of life, the seasons, you know, there's a part of me that wants to live that way, wants to live more connected to the earth, you know, wants to be that sort of person walking barefoot in the ground, doing rituals and, you know, creating things from, you know, doing wood whittling and, you know, carvings and all sorts of stuff. Wants to be better at the sort of, you know, using herbs and stuff as a medicine. Wants to get back to that again, wisdom key book, back to that ancestor energy that's very strong. Like, I feel it's coming through for me. It's just we're embarking on that now, you know. It's starting to open up to me now. You know, as I go forward through the stages of life, I get older, maybe as I get towards a crone kind of phase of my life, you know, I will really step into this energy, and that's why I feel like it will become a classic for me. I also like that it doesn't ascribe to the same meanings as the Rider-Waite. So it's pushing me like the ever, you know, the kind of person I would like to think of myself as this eternal student, you know. But I'll be honest, you know, I get frustrated with learning new things, you know. It's something I'm having to mature into, is realizing, okay, it's not just one rigid kind of way. You have to remain open. And this deck is really helping me with that, actually. It's helping me reconcile with that energy. And again, this is the card that drew me in, and this is a card that has quite a different meaning to what the Two of Swords would actually mean. But it gives you a whole different insight, you know. That's what I love about it. So this is why I hope it will become a classic, because it's going to be part of my evolution. I hope so. But it could just be speaking to the alter ego part of myself that wants to be that sort of druid kind of hippie, in touch with nature a lot more than I am. Could be that. But I hope that is because there's a reason that alter ego exists. I saw a lot of comments on Candy's video where people said this, you know, these are just you maybe being in touch with that future self of yours, you know, that higher self of yours that has that want, but you're having to get past those challenges of being in your younger phases. And that's where I'm at, you know. That's why this deck is kind of challenging. I wouldn't say that's got a brilliant book with it, but it takes study. And, you know, there's a lazy part in me, or just like someone that likes things to come easy, you know, or likes, you know, I've learned this way, why am I going to go learn another way? I do have them aspects of myself, you know, but these aspects I'm confronting because I feel they will be for my betterment. And so this is why I hope this deck will help me with that. Well, it is helping me with that. And it will become a classic down the line that I will have a lot of connection with. And yeah, I hope working through it through spring. I do see this as quite a spring deck, to be quite honest, like definitely, because you know, it's all about new growth, like stepping into new, you know, stepping into the new, whilst also embracing the old, you know, embracing that wisdom. You know, it reminds me of the people I've worked with, you know, done a lot of permaculture and garden kind of work, especially a lot of volunteer work throughout my life, and these energies speak to those sort of older people I've been around that just have so much wisdom within those kind of realms. You know, oh, you have an ailment, try this tea or try this tincture, you know. Herbalists, I got a huge respect and love for people like that. You know, maybe that will be me down the line, who knows. But yeah, I hope it will become a classic, because it's a beautiful deck and it has so much to draw upon, and I feel like it speaks to this energy I might not be fully in right now, but hopefully I'll be growing towards. So yeah, that's the Witch's Wisdom. What else have we got? Next up, in terms of decks that I feel will become classics, or you know, maybe just speak to an alter ego part of myself that kind of wishes to be a certain way, and wishes for them to be classics. Although no, I think this is more so one that definitely will be. It has to be, it's in this velvet bag. It deserves a better bag. I got this second hand, so it didn't come with anything other than like this kind of velvet pouch. But yeah, this is the Llewellyn Tarot. Why I've put this in this category as a deck I feel could be a classic for me, I genuinely feel that had this deck come into my possession earlier on, it would already be so. Genuinely, that's how strongly I feel about it. Just because, again, just a deck that spoke to me so strongly when I saw it. The kind of Celtic kind of element here, the imagery, I can't describe it. It's the way these paintings, especially the light is depicted in them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's so radiant, and it just speaks to me. It's got this fairy tale element to it too, which I like, but it speaks enough to that Rider-Waite system I've learned off of, but it just gives you layer on top of that, you know. Like I said, I've described before, it will give me the meaning of the card, but it gives me advice along with it within that one image. That's how I read this deck. I just feel like I can't call it a classic now, because one, I haven't worked with it enough, two, I don't even have the guidebook to this either. For me, it might not be necessary really, but I would like to have that understanding of it, who these characters are. For instance, you know, my name is Rianne, I have a Welsh name. I'm probably more likely than not have some Welsh ancestry. But I would like to know like a bit more about it, you know, before I call it a classic. I would like to work with it more. I actually bought this deck, you know, second hand, because, you know, as I've seen on Dawn Michelle, I've seen on Sandy from Exploring Tarot as well, a lot of people have modded this deck, and I feel like that might be a bonding process for me, you know, in towards it becoming a classic as well. Because yeah, it's not the biggest, but I feel like I do get put off using this. Oh look, Rhiannon, here we go. She's the Empress. It's my name pretty much, and yes, one of my cards. So you see how the light is drawn in here, whether it's from sunlight or moonlight. It's fascinating. I'm sure is this watercolors? It must be. It's just too beautiful. Its energy is magical. My name means magical maiden in Welsh, so maybe that's part of why I feel it's going to be a classic, you know, that Welsh kind of connection there. But it's more the characters and the energy. I just think it's beautiful. It's taken me into this enchanted kind of world, but one that I know, like one that speaks to me as if I've walked this path myself, really and truthfully. I don't know, maybe there's some ancestor energy coming through this, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't worked with it enough yet, but I do feel it will become a classic, because it seems, for me, it's easy. It's an easy reader. Like I said, it just incorporates advice within the reading as well, without me having to clarify certain things. They're so beautiful to look at. The aesthetic I love. I think watercolors is probably like my favorite type of painting, in all fairness. When I look at my favorite artists, Yeah, it probably is. Like I said, once I've worked with this a bit more, I think I can definitely call it a classic. It's one I feel like I would pick up for anything. Again, I see this as a bit of a spring deck, so again, it's going to be coming out as my spring kind of decks come into play now. So I'll be working with it more. I can just, yeah, what can I say? I see why it's so beloved. I really do. It's this energy. It's very, again, I've tried to describe it. I won't try again, but you know what I mean. Something about it, just something special about it. Again, it's very Rider-Waite, so it helps me, it speaks to that system I'm familiar with, but it gives you enough, enough different energy to kind of not get bored. I think that's how I feel about it. There's the spread. So yeah, I bought it secondhand in the notion, that I would mod it and have it, but now I don't know. I feel like I'm just gonna have to buy an actual other version as well to get the book, and then see what cardstock would be best to kind of mod. I'm quite apprehensive about modding it, to be honest, but that'll be part of my journey, I guess, with it. Getting over that perfectionism, maybe, like, am I gonna mess it up? But yeah, Llewellyn Tarot, I definitely feel like you're gonna become a classic. You speak to Rhea a lot. And yeah, you tell me whether you think it speaks to me aesthetically. I definitely think it does, but yeah, I think it does. So Llewellyn Tarot, we need a nice bag. Sandy from Exploring Tarot, you need to check her out. It's such a great find of a channel I found lately. So soothing, and her crochet bags, oh my goodness, it's so cool. This is what this deck deserves. It deserves an earthy, nice, like, handmade bag. Whether that's going to be me that makes it, or I'm just going to be asking you guys to sell them to me. I don't know. But yeah, Llewellyn Tarot, it deserves that. It deserves that, especially if it's going to be a classic, right? It deserves a classic home. Okay, what else have I got in my arsenal then? Lastly, what shall I end on? Okay, something a bit different. Okay, in terms of classics or wannabe classics, or things I believe would be classics for me, and that is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. A really, like, relatively new kind of addition to my collection. And I say this because in getting this is a deck that, I've been told by a lot of people, oh, I think, you get on with this, like, it suits your aesthetic, it's very earthy, very kind of, got a lot of that earth energy, quite a lot of elemental energies, but all the greens, it's called the Illuminated Earth. It's got that sort of, like, depth to it also. I was like, yeah, this could be a classic. Again, I haven't worked with it enough, but also, I'm struggling with it a little bit, I can't lie. I find this deck, it's not clicked with me quite as what I thought it would have, so it's going to take a lot more work and study and seeing how it was. So this is kind of something that I believed, yeah, this would be like a classic. Again, it was one that sort of spoke to me before I even bought it, but yeah, it's not been as forthcoming for me, this deck, yet. But its look, its aesthetic, I feel it marries very well with a lot of my kind of classics. I feel like this maybe speaks more to the sort of sage I want to be, that magician that wants to be more in connection with the elements, but feels a little bit removed from them right now, because I find this quite what's the word? It's hard to describe. I think I struggle mainly with, like, the elemental cards of this. Like, there's not a lot to go on in terms of imagery for me, or the images don't speak to me as much as I thought they would. So yeah, I feel like this is the classic potentially. Could be, it might not turn out to be one. Like I said, this might be a bit of a classic dud for me, but I thought it'd be different to show, an oracle that in this regard, and one that's not quite turned out how I thought yet. But there's still a chance. yeah, the imagery doesn't speak to me as intuitively as I would like. I feel like there's a part of me, maybe in order to get more in touch with this deck, has to strip back a bit more, has to get more in touch with that sort of elemental kind of energy, that sort of alchemist energy that, you know, needs to elevate in my understanding of that more, for it to really resonate. And then maybe it will become a classic. Maybe I shan't ever get to that phase of life, who knows, maybe that's not my path, but yeah, it's quite shamanic a bit as well, this deck, I want to say, personally for me. And maybe I'm not quite at that shaman stage. Yeah, there's a lot of mystery to unlock. So literally, I was thinking that we have the mystery card. It's very, yeah. I'm trying to think of the correct word to describe this deck. Elemental, shaman-like, like shamanic. A very lot of alchemy as the words that comes for this deck. It does have that earthy energy too, but it's more like beyond that sort of earth and material, like what is behind that kind of energy behind that, it makes sense. Yeah, and it's not been the most intuitive reader for me yet, so definitely can't call it a classic, but it's a beautiful deck. Really does kind of fit my aesthetic, I have to say. If you were going to say, oh yeah, that suits Ree. Even the name, you know, even with the sort of one keyword sort of element here as well. But as of yet, I cannot call it that. It may never be, but I just wanted to throw it in, you know, as the oracle choice, because it was definitely something I find it's interesting to look at what we think might be classics for us, but actually might not turn out to be that way. But you never know. It's coming to the collection for a reason, whether it's to teach me what I'm not meant to be in terms of my classic path, or where I need to get to, and they're trying to illuminate. Look at that, the illuminated earth, as it was. Beautiful deck though. Illuminate where I need to go first before I can make good use of it, you know. Maybe that's its purpose, who knows. But yeah, that's all my offerings for today, guys. Thanks for joining me on this little little journey through my classics. It warranted quite a lot of reflection. I have enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed like watching all of your guys' VRs. It was really cool to see other people kind of ponder and think on, oh, what are my classics actually? Seeing, are they different to my soul decks? Are they different to the ones I would take, 10 parts of my soul? Were they different to my my top 10 decks, my most used? It's really interesting to see. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. If you have, jump on board. I definitely come and join this tag. We'll love to have you. It's always good to see other people's classics. I've been introduced to some decks. I think, oh, that definitely's piqued my interest there. That definitely is a bit of me. I really just enjoyed hearing all of your insights, to be honest. If you don't have a YouTube channel, always feel free to drop your comments here. Would love to know what your classic decks are. For sure, why they're classics to you. Do you feel like you have a theme? I've noticed some people have classics have a very strong either artistic, aesthetic theme. That's been really cool to see, or just in terms of people breaking it down into different facets of their personality. I've really enjoyed that too. It's had so much scope, this tag, Dani, so yeah, well done with that. So yeah, guys, I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Always happy to have you here at the Treehouse. So if you're not part of the gang yet, subscribe. It's all that good stuff. Helps the channel grow, helps us reach more people, and I guess it's always great to be connected. So yeah, thanks for watching again, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.